I'm Tara Sweder in the offices of American Vanadium, downtown Vancouver, with Senior Counsel Global Markets Ron MacDonald, who was recently appointed to American Vanadium's board. Hi Ron, how you doing?
Very good, Tara.
So, I have the understanding that you have a quite extensive background in politics and international trade. What has switched your attention over to the vanadium space?
Well, in my time in Canadian politics at the federal level, I was lucky enough to be Parliamentary Secretary for International Trade. And it was at a time when the resource industry was starting to recover. So it was pretty clear to me coming out to Vancouver after I retired from politics that the resource sector was a good place to try to make a living. So one of the things that's drawn me over to American Vanadium is you're always looking for the next thing that's going to move the market. And clearly over the last couple of years, everybody is starting to get their head around scarcity and criticality in things like rare earths, those weird minerals, weird elements. And in many respects, that has pulled the market up. So you're always looking around to say, what's been overlooked here? What's the next thing that is going to give good value and a good, reasonable opportunity for price appreciation? And it was vanadium. So we came over here and we knew a few people at the company. We're kind of intrigued. It's a weird mineral. Who knows about this thing? Did a little bit of research and quickly found out that it may be a little odd. People don't know a lot about it, but it is absolutely essential for today's economy and for the evolution into things like green tech. So the more that we kind of looked at it, the more we became excited. It is a critical element. It is a critical element in every market that it's in. It's very important for steel making. And when I looked at the market and saw that the Chinese and the Indian market, the Brazil market, the BRIC countries primarily, are going to continue to lead in growth. You look at what is projected as their steel consumption.
Yep.
And what they need is higher quality steel. They're committed to, in places like China and India, producing higher quality, strong steel that is lightweight. You need vanadium for it. And when we started to look around, it became pretty clear to me that vanadium was a place that I was prepared to put a lot of effort in and also a lot of resources.
That's excellent. American Vanadium, I know, is very excited to have you on board. But as well as sitting on the board, what will your specific role be?
Well, one of the things that we've started to work with, because I was working a bit with the company, was to look at what is the highest best value for the shareholders of this company. And clearly, from the pre-feasibility study, it was apparent to me that if this company got into production, with the timelines and the market as they expected it to be, that it was going to be a good return for an investor. But what I saw as the highest best value for this particular company is in a new use, the future use for vanadium, and that is over in mass storage batteries. And when you started to look at that sector, and then you figured out that the driver and the biggest market for that is going to be the US market, and that this particular project for American Vanadium is down in Nevada, and it will be the only primary production of vanadium in the United States, it was kind of a no-brainer. And even if you just do the numbers on the back of the envelope, it's pretty clear that the mass storage battery sector is going to grow phenomenally in the United States because of state government policy. We've had President Obama, who has commented on US technology around things like vanadium redox batteries. And it sort of dawned on all of us around the board table that, hang on a second, we're only a small company. We might have 5 to 10% of the total demand, total production of vanadium worldwide. But in the United States, there's something different driving this industry. The United States is very concerned about security of supply. We saw it earlier, I mentioned it, with rare earth elements and criticality. Well, they know that they need to address their heavy reliance on foreign oil, and they need to reduce their CO2 emissions. That tells you that you've got to go over to renewables. The President of the United States has set very high targets for renewable energy. The problem with renewable energy is if you've got windmill farms, you don't know when they're going to blow. The wind blows at night, there is not a great demand, so you lose the value of that electricity unless you can store it in a cost-effective way and feed it to the grid when it's required. So the United States is moving towards those solutions. The vanadium redox battery, in all my research, tells me it's probably going to be the one, or one of a number of solutions for storage. The fact is, though, the United States is trying to ensure that any future solutions on renewables are not going to have supply chains that are at risk. Let me put this in some perspective. Of all the vanadium that's used in the United States just for steel, and that's the current market, most of that market, about 95% of it, comes from China, it comes from Russia, it comes from Venezuelan oil, the fly ash once it's burned for thermal, and it comes from South Africa. If you kind of look at it from the United States perspective, that means that your supply chain is not terribly secure for both economic and political reasons. So the United States had put in place this interagency task force to deal with criticality, and it's being done out of the White House. So it's being led by the scientific advisor on energy and renewables to the President of the United States, a guy by the name of Cyrus Wadi, a really important guy. And so they have really, with all that they've got going on down there, has said this is a national priority. Well, think about this. If vanadium redox batteries become part of that solution, and we're going to be the only producer in the United States, primary producer in the near future, and if they want to have secure supply lines that are inside the country, it tells me that that deposit that we've got has a significant first mover advantage in that marketplace. And so as a small company, you ask the question, what do I see as my role on the board? My role on the board is to make sure that we understand what the policy imperatives are of the United States government, and that as we develop our long-term plans for this company, that it's in sync with those policy imperatives. And as a small company, because we're the only supply that's there, I think that we can punch above our weight, and I think that we're going to get significant appreciation in the market as a result of that. So that's one of my roles that I see on the board, is to make sure that we keep focused on that.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. I mean, there's a lot of details coming from what you're saying, and it all adds up. But what I want to know, and if you can tell me a little bit more about corporate direction and what that means to you.
Well, I think that, a lot of times small exploration companies, they see the end game as finding something interesting, getting some investors to believe in it, exploring it, and selling it to somebody else to develop. That is traditionally the role that junior mining companies take in Canada. And for anybody that is interested, about 85% of all the new mines that happen sort of come from that exploration community in Canada or financed by it out of Toronto. So the traditional role is that you go and you find something interesting, you get some money, you do it. This company is doing something different. This company has committed itself as a first step to bring this deposit in Nevada into production. So they're not going to sell it. That's not part of the plan at this point in time. And so they're building a really strong team. And the fact that they're building a team from the bottom up is pretty exciting, because everybody inside this group here has a real role to play. They're very positive and they're committed to the project. But I think it's the blue skying outside of that you don't often see in a lot of these junior mining companies. And that's one of the things that really excites me about this company. So you come in, we can sit down, people can have their say, we bring in experts, and we, instead of saying, well, that's going to be difficult to do, we say, let's figure out how to do it. And that's a big difference.
Right.
Over on the energy side, I was in public life for 17 years. I was a member of Parliament, as we talked about earlier, but public policy is a big driver in the resource sector, and a lot of companies never really see it, because they know what they do and they think everything else that's done is kind of weird. It's voodoo science. Well, the reality is that this company is plugged in to something very important. And the very important thing is CO2 reductions around the world. Secondly, doing it through renewables and supporting the economics of renewable by the introduction and development of new technology around battery storage. And so vanadium, we can make lots of money just going out and saying, all we're going to do is produce it and we're going to sell it to the steel sector. And the steel sector, the price projections for that are very, very robust. So I know that the investments that would be put into this company are going to have a good return. But what I know is that the company and the board, and I knew this board well before I come on, they're committed to the highest value. And the highest value means that you've got to go out and sometimes you've got to create that value. That's very, very exciting to be around. It is very exciting to be around.
Sure.
So we're out there and we're creating that value. We're working with the White House. We're working with the Department of Energy, the U.S. National Stockpile Defense Initiative. We're working with IP holders, intellectual property holders in China, in the United States, in Japan, and we're actually leading the parade. So from this little set of offices here, there's a small group of dedicated people, and we're adding to that group every day. A small group that is focused on making that happen. And the reason it's important to understand the politics of it is because in the United States, they need to do it. In Canada, we need to do it. And the fact is, though, in the United States, this is a strategic resource for them. We understand what that means, and that resource should benefit the people that live closest to it. That means Americans. The Americans should benefit from this. So we're going to work aggressively. We're going to continue to talk with the policymakers. We're going to find out how this resource can help solve that the energy self-sufficiency problem in the United States and help with the reduction or the achievement of reduction targets. So I can't think of another companies that would have that opportunity for people to come in and to be able to create that type of a solution, and at the same point in time have significant upside for the investors.
Well, it's a good set of goals. How realistic are they?
They're eminently doable, and you know, lots of people will say, "Oh, well, that's not really what a mining company should be doing." It's exactly what a mining company should be doing: is to lead and always be focused on what is in the best interest of the shareholder. So for me, the best interest of the shareholders here is not just to sell all the product into the steel sector, although they'd make lots of money. The thing is to be a leader here. What this company did at their last AGM and the board meeting subsequent to it, or prior to it, I guess, was that they said, look, we're going to redo our mission statement. And so the strategic direction of this company has been changed. The vision is that we get this mine into operation, which will be, you know, maybe end of the fourth quarter of next year. But more importantly, that we reach out, and our end objective is to be the leader in the development of the mass storage battery sector in the United States. That is unbelievably exciting. And for the people that have invested in this company that support that direction, it's really great to know that they're sticking with us. They want us to go forward and do it, and we're going to get that job done.
That is exciting, Ron. Thank you so much for your time today. Again, we're in the offices of American Vanadium with Director of the company, Ron MacDonald. We'll see you soon.